Hello, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. So we are going to wait just a minute or two to let folks pile in. Sometimes it can take a second to join these kind of Zoom webinars, so I'll just awkwardly fill airtime while we wait.
No
My goal
problem.
every time we do this, my goal is whenever we have a guest to say something that might crack them up at this point.
Nobody can
Yes.
fill that air better than you, Sean. So
Right?
go for it. Sure, do your thing.
Oh,
Oh,
ouch.
we got you this time.
Ouch.
Perfect.
Okay, well, Scott's not invited ever again. For those of you just joining our ramblings and musings, we're just filling airtime while we wait for folks to join. We will get started in like 30 seconds. So sit tight and let's wait for those folks who are just a little bit late because Zoom likes to make it difficult to join sometimes.
Sometimes it does happen. As
It
recent as
does.
today.
All right. Or might get disconnected. Hopefully that doesn't happen. All right. Well, again, thank you for taking the time to join us today. Today's session is being recorded. So, we'll send this out to you later. So if you missed something, don't worry. We'll be able to watch it later. If you have any questions throughout this, you can use the Q&A panel or send a chat to us, and we'll try and answer as many of those as we can while we're presenting. We may save some or most for the end. We'll have a little Q&A session then. Let's get rolling. Hi, I am Sean Mims. I started in the industry over 14 years ago as a technician. And for the past 11 years, I've been a part of the ServiceTrade team, creating solutions and strategies that have helped over 1,300 commercial and industrial contractors grow their business. And I'm the VP of Marketing at ServiceTrade. And joining me today from the ServiceTrade team is Adam Strong.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Strong. I'm our senior solution architect. Been with ServiceTrade for over 5 years in product, customer success, and just spending my entire career helping customers and prospects in your industry adopt ServiceTrade's technology to be successful.
Yep. But you didn't come here to watch us. Here's the real guest of honor. So very fortunate and thankful to have Scott Aggie, President and CEO of 5 fire protection companies, flagship being Guardian Fire Protection Services. Scott, welcome. Mind introducing yourself?
Thank you. Yeah, always a pleasure to participate and look forward to the conversation. My name is Scott Aggie. I'm CEO and President of Guardian Fire Protection and our affiliated brands across 4 states, in Michigan, Fire Pros, Fire Systems in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Liberty Fire Solutions. Guardian is in Maryland, and then in New Jersey, we have a company called Confires. So we've got a presence across 4 states.
I think I wrote 5 fire protection companies on here, but since the last time I wrote something, it's probably grown. So
there's a few more brands. I'm sure there's some people saying, well, why didn't we get the brand name? So I could go on for a while, but that might occupy too much time.
Yeah. So that gives you a hint as to why Scott's here. He's done pretty amazing things with his platform of brands in the fire protection space, and we want to kind of understand a little bit more about how you, Scott, did that. But first, I want to tee it up a little bit. So there's a skilled labor shortage, right? Heard of it? There are some studies that indicate there's at least a 40% shortage of skilled labor compared to the demand that's out there. And for most contractors, this is making it incredibly difficult to hire, retain, and get the most from the technicians that you can find. So does it kind of feel like sometimes that you've hit a productivity plateau, right? We hear from hundreds of contractors this very thing, right? They've gone in, they've updated processes, they've tried new technology, but they feel like they've run into this plateau. They just can't seem to get more out of their business, and they're running into blockers to growing and scaling. And what we see is that a lot of contractors feel like this because they're stuck in this perpetual kind of on-demand mode. Their customers are price sensitive and only want to talk about labor rate, and they never want to approve quotes, or they're dealing with a bunch of repeat visits and service calls where they end up getting turned away, or techs show up without the parts and they need to do the work. And then this constant emergencies, whether it's service calls, right, emergency service calls, or customer disputes that cause distraction and chaos in the business. And ultimately what this does is impact everyone in your business, right? Your sales team struggles to stand out against low-cost competition. The front office is just drowning in emergencies and disputes. Management team is limited by that lack of visibility, so they have no control. And techs are distracted by things like data entry and interruptions, where the office is calling them up, and these repeat visits, a topic we're going to spend a lot of time on today. But worst of all, the absolute worst thing that happens here is that your customers suffer. They experience equipment failures. They have uncertainty about what's going on with their facilities. And there's a study out there suggesting that in 2022, 70% of contractors, commercial contractors, either shrunk or didn't grow at all. And much of it's due to this kind of on-demand practice. Meanwhile, there's this completely different class of contractor out there that's seeing success at any stage, whether it's startups like Preferred Mechanical Group that grew from 3 to 52 techs in under 3 years. Scale-up companies like AirLogix that have seen 70% growth in revenue per tech, or my friend Scott here, full-scale, large organization, Guardian Fire Protection, that in a recent kind of M&A activity received a market-defining revenue multiple. And for those of you paying attention to this that track these things, I did say revenue multiple, not EBITDA multiple. So these companies, they're doing all this despite the skilled labor shortage. So how did they unlock productivity? Well, Scott's going to tell us more about specifically how they did it at Guardian, but generally, what we've seen is most of these companies are transforming from being on demand to in demand. Right? They have the ability to lock in profitable contracts. They can cut out the repeat visits by getting their first-time fix rates up because their techs are enabled to do the right work fast the first time. And they prevent customer problems before they become emergencies. And it's all because they're client-centered. And our benchmark data shows that client-centered contractors grow 44% faster than their peers. So in today's webinar, we really want to focus in on this kind of middle row here, right? So we want to talk a lot about eliminating repeat visits and getting that first-time fix rate up in ways that help you get the right tech to the right jobs at the right time so they can get on site and do the right work fast the first time. So generally, what that kind of looks like is, you know, we hear about a lot of folks in this on-demand mode that suffer from that repeat and slow visits, right? And they end up dispatching unqualified techs. So the tech's got to come back or waste a bunch of time trying to figure out how to do something that they're not able to do. Or the customers end up turning the techs away because they didn't even realize someone's coming and now's not a good time. And that's expensive, right? Drive there and back.
Yeah,
not just fuel, but opportunity cost. Yeah. And same thing, they don't have the parts they need. Same situation. Or they end up spending too much on site because they walk into a mystery, right? They just show up and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Or they do low quality work just because they didn't have the information they needed to be successful. They just didn't have all the context, which leads to callbacks and warranty work, which again, another free trip for the customer, not for you. And compare to that, those companies that have kind of figured this out, how to get that first time fix rate up and how to do the right work fast the first time, because they can get those right techs to the right jobs. And Scott's going to talk a lot about this, I think, in terms of the right jobs. What does that mean? Eliminating client surprises. Don't let things be a bad surprise for your client. They have full visibility throughout, so they don't turn techs away. They know what's going on. Ensuring that they always have the parts they need. Again, that drive time. I think a lot of people, when they think about drive time like that, and it's just, okay, cost of fuel and mileage on the car, but that opportunity cost for the skilled labor that's in such demand and there's such a shortage of. Then equipping them to just go in and do the work faster, right? Technology can help those techs be faster and do their work faster. And then just ultimately delivering high quality work so you cut out those callbacks and warranties. So, Scott, let's talk about Guardian's transformation. You showed up to Guardian how long ago?
17 years ago.
17 years ago.
A little more, yeah, just over 17 years.
Yeah, so Scott and I had a chance to catch up before this, so it's not making this up on the fly, but you told me a little bit about what things were like before. So what was Guardian like 17 years ago when you stepped in the door?
Yeah, disorganized and inefficient is clearly a good way to describe it. So, at the heart of it, which I'm sure many people can relate to, probably not too many today, I hope, but we had a dot matrix printer that was just spinning out index cards with some limited information on it. And that was the big deal when the printer run off, and it would run and print all these cards, and then you shuffle them around the office. And the software that it came from was so antiquated, you couldn't really account for it. There was no follow-up method. There was no means of knowing, well, gee, did you have 500 inspections to do, and how many did you get done during the month? And then, the real problem was sometimes the index card, the data was programmed so you had fire alarm and sprinkler on one card, but you had two separate groups scheduling that service. And then you had to rely on them shuffling the card back and forth, making a copy of it, scheduling. So it was just very ineffective. And,
and one of the things that we've seen is that now I doubt that anyone on this call, I could be wrong, but I doubt anyone on this call is still using a dot matrix printer. If you are, you've got some work to do. But a lot of the processes you described and the linearity of passing paper around still, I think, kind of exist in a lot of even more modern systems. So they're stuck with this approach that limits them from being efficient and effective. But you were, when we kind of talked about this before, you were doing what industry best practice, number of work orders per day. That's one way you could try and measure, if you could get any information about were you getting enough work orders per day, right?
Yeah. So how many jobs per day, jobs per day.
Jobs per day. And then the cards had no information on them. So texts show up. I don't know why Scooby-Doo keeps popping ahead, but like it show up it's a mystery, right?
Very, very limited information.
Yeah. And then nothing for quote repairs. I remember back in my days at Dunwell, a long time ago, it was something similar. When work order would come in, and primary focus was billing, makes sense, get it closed out and billed, and quoting was cherry picked. Is that what was happening for y'all? Just grab what you can.
Yeah, and severity of the deficiency certainly played a role in there, and it was just It was tough to get everything done with disorganized, inefficient system. And we did our best. We quickly programmed our own software system using Microsoft Access.
Yep.
We designed it. It worked well for us. The problem was we had probably 4 different software systems. One to manage the inspection base and follow up to make sure you got that work done, and then we had another software system to actually put the routes in so we could assemble the routes and look at where everyone was going every day. And then we had another system that we'd use to try to generate the quotes for deficiencies, but obviously that was a very manual process because you're taking paperwork and it's from one end basket to another person's end basket.
Yeah.
And that would eventually get processed. And then of course we got the accounting system, which is completely separate. So nothing got entered previous to that.
And before we move on to kind of how things are today, I want to kind of reiterate the bullets we've got written up here. Yeah, you had a paper process, and we can all joke about, okay, paper processes. No one's really doing that anymore. But I'm willing to bet there's a lot of people on this call who are still focusing on maximizing work orders per day, as opposed to possibly something else we'll talk about in a second. Techs are showing up with, they may have mobile apps of some kind, but they're showing up and there's a blank slate and they're walking into a mystery. And quoting repairs and doing pull-through work is very often an afterthought. So
and it's a manual, disjointed process, really, unless you've got it all under one roof, like we're fortunate to have with ServiceTrade.
Right. And we'll get there in a second. But so let's talk about Guardian today. I mentioned earlier how successful you all have been, kind of at the enterprise value level. But let's get tactical here and talk about how are you doing that? What's happening out there in the world? So again, topic here, maximizing that technician productivity. You years ago, first time I ever walked into, even before I walked into the Guardian Fire Protection office, when I was the person trying to sell you software, you were telling me about dollars per day and how focused y'all were on that. Tell us about that. How do your coordinators operate?
Yeah, so we quickly learned, and then this is what we programmed into that access system that we created. And it was really about, when you're scheduling a route, do you have any concept of what the value is of what you're scheduling? Because, we had a discipline in place, which we obviously still do. We've got a certain budget we're trying to achieve. And so when you look at the route, it's too simple to just try to slap a few things together. It's inefficient, too much drive time, that type of thing. So, we instilled the measurement of, well, what is the estimated value, the estimated price of what we are going to bill our customers for the work you scheduled. And so that mindset, that changed. It wasn't about necessarily the jobs, because there are many jobs that you're there for a day or two or multiple days. So it's really about, well, what is the value of that job and how much are you able to bill if you got 3 jobs or 4 jobs or 5 or 1. If our goal is $1,000 a day for easy math, it's much higher.
Yeah.
But you just got to make sure, do you have 4 jobs that are 250? And one of the interesting things is with and I'm sure we'll get to this if it's a bullet point on the next slide, but you take fire extinguisher service, for instance, which is you can easily schedule the inspection, and let's say that's $200. You got X number of extinguishers, you're going to bill $200 for that inspection. If you have the data and the wherewithal to know how many of those extinguishers are due for 6-year maintenance, hydro test, and you can pre-sell that as you're scheduling the work.
Right.
Now your technician is going there prepared to not just do $100 or $200 worth of inspection work. They're doing $800 or $1,000 worth of work, because they're swapping out a number of extinguishers that are due for maintenance.
Well, not just that. I mean, they're doing $800 for something that's real fast because that work was queued up for them. And this goes back to that, tech labor shortage, very high demand. And what we hear folks say all the time, the phrase that bounces around in my head all the time, we have more work than we can handle. Well, if you have more work than you can handle, then you have the ability to prioritize things in a way that lets you drive more dollars.
Yeah, getting that work done on the first visit allows you to have another day that you would have went for the return visit to do something else.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
and so that's a real good way to make efficient use of limited resources.
Right, and then capturing the data in a way that you are able to quote practically every repair and get approved and get that pull through. And what impact does that end up having?
Yeah, exactly. And so, the deficiency process, in the past, you had handwritten documents trying to read and understand the deficiencies, and then it goes to somebody's responsibility. Now, the beauty of it with ServiceTrade is the deficiency is just immediately visible. It's immediately seen. So, you back up, you've got the technician going on site. That might be there for an inspection, could be a service call, emergency call, whatever the case is. Maybe it's a repair that already went through the process. They have the visibility quickly to go look at the history and see what their coworkers did already on site at that company, because they might not have been the tech that was there the prior 2 or 3 times, whatever the case may be, or they might be the person on call. And so the ability for them to look back and see the history of what we've already found or what we fixed or what we've told the customer needs to be done, it just allows that visit to be so much more productive, to get done what you need to do. You walk into the job with information that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And and then the process while we're there to document deficiencies that we find, the transparency we have with that, with the team in the office who's going to convert that deficiency into a quote, is seamless. And it's now something that can be measured. How many deficiencies you have sitting there in a backlog and a queue waiting to be quoted. And we make sure that those are processed rapidly so that the quotes get out the door.
And just driving that pull-through revenue, which, if you look at, okay, let's take maintenance, preventive maintenance or inspection work, very labor intensive, very often not as parts heavy. So you get as much margin as you get on your labor rates. Whereas this repair work, this pull-through work, you get your margin on your labor rate and you're selling parts. So the revenue per labor hour or gross profit per labor hour is higher.
Much higher.
So
Yeah.
you're getting more productivity out of your technicians, not out of that sounds like they're producing more because they're doing more valuable work, right?
Right.
So you alluded to it a lot there in terms of what does it take to do this, and some of the stuff you started down this path of transformation before ServiceTrade, right? You had some interesting technology, though it was home cooked and built. You started down an interesting path, but the requirements to do these things, to make these transformation, right? Management reporting. If you want to maximize dollars per day, you got no hope, right, of doing this unless your team can see it. So how does your team see it today, right? The dollars per day that you've got scheduled out.
Yeah. So we utilize the estimated price field in ServiceTrade. And so as people are scheduling work throughout they're scheduling the next day, the next several days, next week's worth of work, they're looking at the value of the job. So the information is obviously available there in ServiceTrade, what what we sold the job for, if it's a repair or an inspection. And then if it's a service call, they're using their best judgment to determine what is the value of what we are scheduling.
Right.
And so this is a field that auto-populates when there's data to populate, and then you can go in and edit it. So it'll populate with a $200 extinguisher inspection. You sell $800 worth of extinguisher service. It's now going to be $1,000. So we'll go in and type over that, hard code it. So, and then we've got management has the ability to view what the scheduling process is generating in dollars per day while the schedules are being put together. And so we have the ability to hover over that effort as it's going on and monitor what's occurring. And so you can reach out to somebody and say, hey, it looks like you're struggling here. I know we're getting to the end of the month, less work. Where are you at? Do you need help? Just to make sure that somebody's looking at it and saying, great, everyone's on track. Seems like we're hitting the right number per day or not. Then instead of the day just being unproductive, we can jump in and help because we got visibility to see who's struggling and where things are going.
Right. And I'll probably pick up pace a little bit on these last two. So asset management. You talked about techs showing up unprepared before because they're showing up with blank slate, and now they've got here's
full
everything.
Information. Yeah.
Full information.
All the asset detail, history. Yep.
And to call out more importantly, and Adam will show this in a second. I always have to bring this up. Adam knows this. I'm passionate about this. It's not just about seeing the history of every work order, right? Because if you had to dig through every work order and the details on every work order to figure out what was going on, your tech would just be sitting there swiping all day.
Right.
But if you can bubble up what problems have been found here, that's what matters to the tech. What problems have been found here before? Yeah. That gives them the context to make better decisions, to better take care of the customer, find new problems, all of that great stuff. And then pull through automation. You mentioned this tuned up, quote everything that you can, right?
Yep. Getting the deficiencies quoted quickly, and then obviously have an effort to get out and talk to the customers and sell those repairs. But in large part they sell themselves because the data is very current. There's pictures. It's all the information that they need at their fingertips, and it's really easy for the customers to hit approve and move on. And it shouldn't be the first time they heard about it because they're going to know when we left the building, we're going to tell them what the problem was. They're going to see it in documentation about that service. And so typically the repairs sell quickly, but not all of them. So we have a sales force that follows up to make sure those repairs are sold.
And to support what Scott just said, I'll make sure when we do the follow-up for this webinar at some point, we'll follow up with a data study we did that showed some of the key things that help drive faster and higher quote approval rates in terms of, how many attachments on a quote is actually the optimal number, because it's not always more is better. There's actually a specific number to optimize quote approval rate. And, how many reminders should you send? Because there's kind of a diminishing rate of return. And how quickly should you turn them around? So we'll follow up with that. It's pretty cool study. And Scott is kind of, and Guardian is living, breathing testament to the power of doing those things well. So, well, cool, Scott. Hey, thank you for sharing the story with with us. I'm going to show a few more slides here to tee up Adam to actually show how in ServiceTrade, you can do many of the things, if not all of the things that Scott was just talking about. Thanks again, Scott.
Great. Yep.
Okay, so if I can get my clicker working here, like I mentioned, Adam's going to show the ServiceTrade platform, which is a single source of asset truth, right? This is what Scott was speaking to in terms of the importance of having all of that asset information, whether it's the services and the pricing with those services associated with them, or the detailed service history, the specific issue history that enables the tech. ServiceTrade kind of brings all that together. So all of the right people have the information about those assets that they need, so your team can be more productive. End-to-end platform from sales performance to service excellence. We're not going to show everything today because if we did that, we'd have a 12-hour webinar, and I don't think Adam can last that long. And track record of success, over 1,300 contractors trust ServiceTrade's kind of 11-year history and deep industry expertise. And we're very fortunate, again, to have customers like Guardian Fire Protection who put it to good use. So the 5 key areas of the ServiceTrade platform: sales success, office coordination, technician productivity, customer communication, and management visibility. Not going to touch on every single one of these today, but worth highlighting. Sales success. Talked about the pull-through aspects, but also helpful in winning net new service, inspection, maintenance agreements, and doing so in a way that can help you ensure your margins, ensure higher margins. Office coordination. Adam's going to show you a lot of this today with scheduling and dispatching capabilities that help you get the right tech to the right jobs at the right time with all the parts and everything they need to do the work quickly. Technician productivity. He'll dive deep into this in terms of showing how your techs will be set up for success so they can, do great work fast the first time. Again, all in the effort of doing quality work quickly to eliminate those callbacks. Customer communication to help stem off those turnaways, right? Making sure the customer knows you're going to show up and not turn your tech away, or, call you back and dispute something because they don't buy it, or they don't believe what you're invoicing them for. And ultimately what happens with those disputes? Well, they go to the coordinator, and the coordinator calls the tech and asks the tech, what did you do last week? And the tech says, I don't know what I did yesterday. And management visibility. We'll show you a bit of this. Again, reports could show you reporting on all the things, but specifically around, eliminating the repeat visits, driving tech efficiency and productivity. So with that, I will hand it over to Adam to demo some key capabilities in ServiceTrade.
Yeah, you bet. All right, so Susan, I see your question. I will show you in when we get to the technician mobile app how those issues bubble up to be more visible. So we'll definitely get there. So what I want to do is I want to show the dispatch and scheduling board, so we can start from how these things get scheduled and handed over to a technician from the beginning. So I'm looking at my map view, and let's zoom in here on Chicago so we can see all the different jobs that I have scheduled across the area. And so making sure that technicians aren't spending a lot of time driving around through heavy traffic and all that, I can schedule clusters of different jobs to different technicians so that they're not spending a whole bunch of time, crossing town during heavy traffic. The other thing I can do, and this is something that Scott mentioned, is prioritizing that higher dollar value work. So each one of these jobs, we have an expected amount of revenue from it. So I'm going to use my map filters, and I'm going to go down to limit by estimated price and make that 2,000. And so now I'm only looking at the jobs that hit that target. And so this gives me as a dispatcher the ability to not only find the right tech for the right job in the right place, but for the right dollar amount too. So there are a whole bunch of other filters in here to make sure that, that I'm looking at the right types of jobs in the right states. We'll dive into that a little bit more when we get to the scheduling view. So right now I'm looking at our day view, and we've got a week and a month view. I can look at the entire team for a much longer period of time. drill it down by office, etc. I'm going to look at the day view and look at available jobs. So we're taking a lot of these proactive services and turning them into jobs. This might be a rather large group of jobs, and I can prioritize the ones that absolutely need to be scheduled by dropping them in the queue. But what I'm really going to do here is I'm going to filter based on a number of different factors. So let's filter by preventative maintenance. And so we're also going to filter by parts that are ordered but not yet received. So purchase orders have been created by our team. These jobs, they're ready to go. Technician's going to pick these parts up on their way to the job site. They need to be able to reference a PO. Not good to send them out without that information. Well, as a dispatcher, I don't want to schedule these jobs until that's done. I also don't want to phone call, email, find out what the status is. I just want to be presented with the right information at the right time and have the rest of the noise, things I can't act on, just out of my view. So by filtering on just these couple things, I have one job here that I need to schedule. So I'm going to put that on Adam's schedule right here. And now that's done. The technician has a notification. They can see that in their schedule. They know where they need to be. And not only that, they have access to the POs, the services, the asset history. We'll see all that when we get to the technician view. And jump in here a little bit more detail, and I can even add Sean to this job as well right from here. It'll pop on his schedule too. He doesn't want to do it.
I don't, no, not today. No,
Yeah, he works on that really high level elite equipment, and these rooftop units are just not special enough for him apparently.
Yep.
All right. So there are a lot of other things that I can do here too. So notice I've got these comments. As a dispatcher, somebody with context, I can go in and put a comment on the job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in that our on-site contact, Michael, is out this week. So we're going to contact Aaron instead. And so I'm going to make this an internal comment. And this is going to be a note for our technician. And now that context is right there. So they're not even on site yet, and I'm able to start providing them the context that they need. These other types of comments, really helpful. Here's a door code for roof access. It's on the location. So anytime any job is scheduled for this particular school, this comment pops right onto the job. Don't have to keep remembering. But if something specific happens for this job, or I have multiple services, multiple lines of business. Scott mentioned alarms and sprinklers. I could have multiple technicians doing those services, and I can target my comments to just the alarm technician because the sprinkler technician doesn't care. So it gives me a lot of ability to give exactly the right information they need to know at exactly the right time and exactly the right place. And our techs are just trained to, they open the app instead of calling me about it, they open the app and they just see my comments. So I think we're ready to inform the customer that we're going to be on our way. And I'm going to do that by sending a service link. So again, right from this job, right from the dispatch board, I can confirm with the customer this is the right appointment so that our technician doesn't go out there and find that out the hard way. That's not the right time. So I'm going to send that service link. And that is going to give me the ability to choose right here what I'm going to send to them and what I'm not. So we're going to hide this comment and this comment, but we're going to keep everything else there visible. And I can send that to the location primary contact, and away that goes. Now the customer is informed. If there's anything wrong, I can reschedule. If not, we've got that confirmation. Tech is going to be able to arrive right on site. So here we are on the job, and we'll just give a quick tour. It's for this school district at this particular location. It's part of this contract that we have with them. We've got our job description, and notice the service. We talked about multiple services with multiple techs doing something, either at the same time or different appointments on the same job. Here's just a really simple example of one preventative maintenance on these rooftop units scheduled for this time with the one person who's going to go out to do it. Notice my parts. So I happen to know we need these filters and we need these belts for this season's work. I don't always have to replace belts with every visit, so they popped up on just this one, happened to be due. And my procurement team already created a purchase order, which shows up automatically on the job for me as the office. And that's how this job showed up in the dispatch board. But we've got everything we need right here. And we'll see clock events and any deficiencies reported as the technician is doing the work out in the field. So we'll come right back here. First, before we do that, we're going to jump over to the technician view using my phone so we can get that going. Give me 1 second to share that. All right, perfect. So I'm in my schedule for the day, and I'm going to see, have I been scheduled for anything? Yes, I have. I've got a couple things here. The afternoon one. Yeah, it's the sharing is being a little fun. So let's make sure that I can do that. Give me a moment. Let me stop my share.
This is where we start the hold music.
Star Wars Cantina. I
I
didn't think you were going to sing it. I thought we were just going to. All right.
I see Scott talking, but he's on mute. He's got another quip at me. I know it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. This may be a problem.
I can run and get another cable for you.
It's not the cable. It's just how the thing.
I can tell you, I'm looking at his phone right now, and it's really cool. It's good stuff. I'll narrate it completely.
No, that's not gonna work.
I can add in something just about looking at the parts, that you showed around the job. So what's really nice is technicians, if it's a different technician going out to do the repair, when they have that visibility to see the parts, it's by nature, you're gonna second guess, well, gee, I wonder, where'd they get this part list from? Let me go back and look at the deficiency, look who wrote it up. And let me just think, gee, I bet you there's a good chance there could be something else needed. They'll grab that part, or they'll call that technician that was there and say, hey, did you check this or that? Because it also could be something else. And providing that visibility and dialogue makes the trip more productive. And obviously the goal is to get the customer taken care of, and that helps.
Right. Try to join through Zoom. Do you want to try to do it through my machine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should have that.
Yep. We're going to do a little switcheroo here. And open up QuickTime.
Get that. Could you try again?
Siri.
Stop saying that word.
Stand by for just a second. Allow.
While you guys are doing that, I've got another item I can bring up. So, the dollars per day thing is obviously important and drives a lot of what we do. But clearly you've got some low dollar deficiencies that are important to get fixed. And so obviously our goal is to get them all done. But the important thing is with the lower dollar deficiencies, it helps the scheduler know, this is a $200 or $300 repair or a $500 repair. It shouldn't take the entire day. So it allows that day to be structured so that if you're doing a $500 repair, you should also be able to do something else that day. And so our goal is to get everything done, and it really just helps the overall net productivity per day figure become higher.
Yeah.
Didn't want people to think we're just not doing all the work. We're doing all the work. We're just making sure when we do it, it's part of a productive day.
Well, I think we've got a winner over here.
That was
look at that.
It was sitting there ready until the moment I decided to share it. But so what you missed is that I went to my schedule and I can see everything, every place I need to be today in the order I need to be there. And so I'm going to this particular job. This is the one that we were looking at. And, Susan, I'll get to your question. This deficiencies tab right here in the top right corner, this is how we bubble up all those issues to the top. So I can go into the assets and I can look at all of the different assets, go to rooftop unit 3, see its service history, all kinds of stuff there. But, as Sean mentioned, That's tedious, especially if it's a huge place that I'm going to. I want those deficiencies to pop up at the top. And so I go here and we've got a number of open deficiencies. So here's one, this rooftop unit 1, belt is shredding, we'll need to replace earlier than anticipated. Let's go into this a little bit. The reporter is one of our coworkers, Aaron Mims. He's not here in this webinar, but to Scott's point, he doesn't need to be. What he reported right here in the app, and I can go on site and I can see this and I can respond to it without us having to call each other or share notes. All of that history is right there. Now, this is a suggested repair, so we have some different severity levels. But since I'm on here to repair belts anyway, I'm going to make sure that as a matter of doing my work, that I fix this. So it's important to log these things, even if you're just going to fix it as a matter of doing your work and not quote it out as something special, because this this data, while it seems like a smaller thing, might be highlighting something significantly more severe that I want to bring to the customer's attention. We've been seeing this happen over and over, and instead of putting a Band-Aid on it, let's take a little bit of extra time, diagnose it, and get to the heart of the problem. Customers are going to love that level of proactivity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and instead of new, I'm going to mark it as fixed, save it, because I'm going through my job items and I'm going to use some of those belts to replace it. So since we're on the job items page, notice I have 12 filters and 4 belts, the exact part number and the vendor that the vendor and that purchase order number right there. So if I am going to the parts house to pick these up and I need to reference that PO number, again, I'm not calling Sean, I'm not calling anyone in the office to find out. It's right here exactly where I expect it. And I'm basically trained to look right for that information, and it's always there. So comments, again, there's the door code, and oh, there's that job specific comment about how Michael's out this week and I need to contact Aaron. So when I get my work acknowledgement at the end of my visit, I'm going to contact him and have him sign that instead. I'm not going to spend any time trying to hunt down Michael to find out that, he's not there. All right. Next piece, the tasking. So for the audience in the mechanical space, asset tasking is really important. What we want to do is we want to guide the technician.
I want to call out a disclaimer here. This is actually some very new capabilities that are early access for some folks, but we're really excited about them. And I'll say the same is true for some of the map-based scheduling. So dispatch board, I think that's available to everyone right now, but the map-based scheduling, that's some new stuff. So any customers that are joining us today, this is some stuff to get excited about.
Yep. Yeah, great point. Some of our customers have, as Sean mentioned, access to this, and the feedback has been really strong. And we're excited to show this. Yeah, so for each asset and each asset type, I have a series of tasks that I've templatized to this asset type and spread out for each visit. So I have 20 tasks for rooftop unit 1, but I may not have to do every single one of those tasks every single visit. And intelligently, the application's only going to show me the tasks that I need to do for this visit, and not, I don't have to scroll through things that I have to ignore. It's cutting out that noise and keeping my attention on the things I need to do. So most of these are just simple checkboxes that I just say they're done. But occasionally I need to record a numerical number in the amps. I might have to put in a date. I may need to put in some text. I can even get a multiple choice question where I can select the right answer to help that data be more structured instead of a free-for-all. And you'll notice that as I'm tapping through these, the progress bar is moving all the way to completion. And I can continue going through a number of these different assets. And eventually, when we hit 100% completion, that ring turns green, and I know that I'm done. And it's super helpful to be able to go through that, but the office can see what I'm doing. If Sean and I were on this job together, and he was doing some of the assets, or maybe, I'm doing the filter changes and some other things. He's doing some of the more senior level work, and we're splitting up the tasks. The office is still able to see who's doing what, when, what numbers were put in, what multiple choice questions were answered, all right there from the job page, and we'll see that in a little bit. So that's a sneak preview of tasking for our mechanical audience.
Sorry, I've got a total non-sequitur when you talk about the green circle being completed, and it automatically did this is because I have a toddler who knows all done sign language. It's like all done.
So for our fire audience, when you're doing inspections, you're going to need a little bit more than just these kind of checklists, because what you're trying to do at the end of it is provide documentation according to fire code. So what we have here is some extra capability with Inspection Manager to, again, with the same level of simplicity, let me go through and put in the information. Let me tap a couple of these things, check some of these boxes, answer some of these questions. Only be presented with the questions that are relevant. If I answer a question that requires more follow-up, then those follow-up questions appear. It guides me through the process so that I only have to click through and tap through the things that are absolutely required and not be bothered by the things that aren't. And as I go through answering these questions, it's going to build out that data set so that at the end of this, you're going to get an NFPA form that's exactly to code without having to fill out that document by hand. So it's another great way. And this, unlike tasking, this is available. Tons of customers are using it. Scott, I think you might be too.
Yes.
And it's specifically for fire for the codes that are required.
And no, just to make sure it pre-populates with all of that asset information when they get these forms, so they're not filling in a completely blank form. I think this example has a well, I guess you'd have the sprinkler systems in there, didn't you? So those jump in, populate automatically, so the tech doesn't have to recapture every single piece of equipment.
Yep, that's
it's nice. It automatically updates the main asset information in ServiceTrade. So again, just more efficient.
Yep. Excellent. So I think from the job page, I think, or from the web app, I think we're pretty good. What I want to do is do my work acknowledgement. I'm going to scroll through and select my contact. There's Aaron and the things I want to share with him. Some of our customers generate invoices out in the field. If you do not, and that is a very scary idea for you, turn that permission off. I have mine on, which is why you're seeing this. But if that frightens you, don't worry. Most of our customers have that off. So I'm going to continue without the invoice. And then if our guy Aaron were here, I'd hand the phone over to him, and he would. There we go.
Don't move.
He would. Yeah, I'm almost done too.
Yeah.
Basically confirm what you saw on that previous screen. Click and sign. And
I'll finish signing, and you can just
would
flip
you
over
like
to
to
the.
finish?
I'll finish. I'm going to act as Aaron today. I'm going to sign off on that work, and let's see here.
I think it might actually be that cable. I'll have to figure that out.
Yep. And then you can switch over to the office view.
Yep. Let's do it.
It's like a magnetic cable.
All right. So we're back on the office page, and a couple things that we want to note. I have not clocked out or completed the appointment, but as somebody reviewing the job, actually, yeah, if you want to do that for me, we'll see all that happen. The appointment can be complete. Separately, the service can be complete, and separately, the job can be complete. And why do you care about that is in service, sometimes things happen. I might be done with the appointment, but I couldn't complete that service. And so I can come back, have another appointment scheduled. We've got great ways for dispatchers to see that those cases have happened so that maybe we can schedule someone out to finish that work. And we notice that that's complete. That updated while we're looking at it. But there's a lot of flexibility in this model, and it's designed for service because while we like to have guardrails and smooth processes, things happen. You got to be able to respond to them. A system that's too rigid is going to lock you in place, and then you have to do workarounds to be able to get the job done. So let's go through. We've got our clock events. Full disclaimer, we're not located anywhere near Dallas, Texas. So you
Mm-mm.
can see on my clock events that that's the case. Do with that information what you will. But we've got our assets. We've got a deficiency. Let's show the fixed. There it is. So this deficiency was reported on another job, and then it was updated here. So with the way that we track deficiencies in our software, we're able to relate them to multiple jobs. That's huge because Aaron reported it, I fixed it. You reviewing the job, you want to know that that happened. And so we present everything that you need to review this job on one screen. And that's a really, really good advantage to have. We've got the comments that we saw before. And had the tech made any comments out in the field, we would see that there. By the way, technicians generally don't like typing. I don't generally like typing on my phone either. They can do audio notes, video, all kinds of stuff to get the information out to the office. Let's check out some of those attachments. So here is our NFPA form. You can scroll through and I can see all the answers that were provided. What passed, if anything failed. Yep, we've got a bright red fail right here. So that's great information. Deficiencies reported through these forms are added to the job. We're kind of mixing fire and mechanical, so a little harder to show today. But you have all of those just quick QAs populating this form that adheres to code. Got some interesting photos on this one.
Useful photos.
Useful photos. And some very thorough signatures at the bottom of this example document. So the other one that we have, the work acknowledgement for the job that we were just looking at, with the description, what we're here to do, that one of the deficiencies was fixed. Thank you, our friend Aaron for acknowledging that that's something we did and signing that document attached right on the job. So, and to kind of speed up a little bit because we've got some great reporting things that we want to cover. But the last thing that I wanted to mention, if we open up that service link again, is that all of this is getting updated in real time on the service link. So your customer is able to see this, they're able to see that entire story. If we had, generally I like to include the deficiencies in the service link, that they would see that that was something that we fixed during this visit. Again, since you have that fine level of control, what's seen and what's not, you've got the ability to add and remove content here. So that is a very quick overview of a lot of the scheduling and dispatch and that sort of thing. You want to jump over to yours?
Yeah, and I want to show a little on the back end. After let me, if you don't mind finishing it. Yeah. So you heard Scott talking about earlier how important it is for his team to not only be able to capture all this information to maintain tech productivity, eliminate repeat visits, but also there's the need to just report on it to ensure there's accountability. And so set up an example dashboard that looks, I think, a little bit like what something Scott's team uses, and other customers use similar reporting. But what I've set up here is an estimated revenue per day. So for this week, let's pretend that we're looking at this week. What's this week look like? And let's say my responsibility is to ensure that we're going to get the most from our team this week in terms of technicians, dollars per day. So I'm broken this out by divisions, right? We can see by division, what is our estimated revenue per division? We can go down and get more details in this and say, okay, well, let's look at division 2. Let's look at those techs and see what their dollars per day that we've estimated that are scheduled and the number of hours we've scheduled for them each day. Those are hours on site, right? We wouldn't expect these to be 8 hours, but hopefully we can get more than 3 on-site hours with Joshua here. And that's probably why he's only at $1,200 for that day. And I've got that in red because it's below our threshold of what our expectation is. But, we're probably going to make up for it with some of these other folks like Sarah and William here, hitting $2,500 and $4,000 per day, right? So you can see how pretty quickly, regardless of how many work orders per day we're doing, we can ensure that we're prioritizing the most valuable work. And there's other things to consider too. This is just one of many factors, right? Is it an important customer that you just need to go to and this particular job is lower dollar? Sure, that happens. But at the end of the week, are we doing what we need to do? And then coming down a little bit, How frequently did the team send reminders, right? Hopefully we're calling to remind customers we're going to show up to avoid turnaways, but also sending them appointment reminders with the service lane. Here we see in Division 1, they only sent reminders for 26% of the jobs. Whereas for today, they sent reminders for 45 and 46%. And we can see how often they've been viewed by the customer. So we can understand, that engagement rate, because to send 100 reminders doesn't mean 100 reminders get seen. All of this in the hopes of maximizing that productivity in terms of how we're prioritizing the work, and then notifying the customer to avoid those turnaways. And then
One
let's
thing
say,
I thought of, I meant to add earlier, sorry for
Yeah.
interrupting here. With the estimated per day, anyone can slap an estimate out there. And so it looks good and you got your boss off your back, but how did you do when we actually build it compared to your estimate? So we have a report for that too. So it allows us to go back and look so that you can provide feedback to people and say, hey, seems like we got a pattern here. You're showing these beautiful numbers that we like to see, but when we bill it, you're always 50% of it or whatever the case may be. So you've got that management ability to really look in and follow up and make the process accountable.
Scott, you just teed me up perfectly.
Oh, love it.
Love it. I love it. What would this webinar be without Scott here? Saving our bacon.
We didn't even rehearse this.
So here's actual revenue per day for last week, right? Okay, bar chart's nice. We're going to expect it to fall into a certain range, but let's look at Division 2 again. What was their actual revenue per day per tech? Their delta. We can look at the actual minus the estimate and see where we were. Like, holy cow, we almost doubled here. That's incredible. I mean, I think when you look at forecasting like this, you probably look at how do we do 2x and not know it as being maybe a negative thing, maybe a positive thing. You can dig into that and understand, but we definitely shouldn't be doing, a third of, a fraction of, or hitting some, a number way below our expectations. So, comparing that planned versus actual, to Scott's point, making corrections, management corrections, say, okay, what do we need to change? Something was off here. And then looking at things like, okay, well, what's our on-site time per technician? So this is broken up by division, but let's drill down into Division 3 and look, if we say we want to hit 36 hours per week of on-site time, we're never going to get 40 hours. There's going to be drive time. But where are the techs landing in that goal? So, we've got Katie here hitting close to 50 hours. Good for her. Bob Jordan, 27. Danielle, 27. It might not be their fault. They've got low. It's probably not just them. It's probably management scheduling things around them, but it gives us a starting point to dive in and understand what is going on here. Why last week were so many of these techs below our expected 36 hours per week. Then we can look at windshield time. Well, this is probably a culprit. What is happening in Division 2? That 22% of the technicians' time is spent driving and en route. Let's drill down into that and see, are there some particular, Heather skewed that whole thing. She spent a third of her time en route to work. That is just, unless she had to drive across the state for one job that we know that's what she had to do, but that's probably not a good thing. And then warranty COGS by division. So looking at, for those jobs that we've called warranty jobs, what were the costs associated with those divided by our revenue for the other jobs that week, right? And what we billed for those jobs. Seeing Division 2, again, showing up on the top of this board, and I think there might be something going on there. Warranty COGS of 3.5% when we are shooting for a goal of a 1.5% max. Something has happened in that team where they're doing lower quality work, and we're ending up in a lot of callbacks or expensive callbacks. So, touched on a lot of topics here, and I think we're like almost at an hour. So I'm going to try and wrap this up quickly with a quick reminder about the Digital Wrap Conference, which is coming up starting on April 29th through May 1st. And this is the conference for commercial contractors, right, Scott?
Absolutely.
Thankful that you are there every single year. So if you want to come
Every
hang
year.
out with
Haven't missed
Scott,
one. Yeah.
right? You don't want to see me or Adam. You want to come and see Scott. Let's be real here. Lots of people like Scott, like-minded people here. That's one of the biggest pieces of feedback we get about the Digital Rep Conference is that there are just some incredibly smart people like Scott and hundreds of others who, are talking about these best practices and how they can get the kind of outcomes that Scott has seen and is continuing to see at his business. We're all very excited about it. A little on our side, a little anxious about getting ready. But
You guys always do a great job. Yeah, it's just an excellent networking event and really just sharing best practices with companies and, people from various companies across the country. It's outstanding networking event. You guys always do a great job. So I'm looking forward to it.
appreciate it. Again, Scott, saving our bacon on this webinar, making us look good. Thanks, man. Okay, everybody, we didn't get to all the questions. I think we can stick around for just a couple minutes, and there were some questions that we need to get to.
Yeah, there are a couple.
Okay, there are a couple questions that we'll get to. I know it's like an hour, so if you got to go, totally get it. But we'll stick around for just a second. What you got? What questions do you think we should?
There's specific ones that we should follow up with individuals.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I think for those outstanding questions, we'll try and get back to you. We'll have someone on the team get back to you about those instead of airtime jibba-jobbing. So thank you, everybody. Yes, I said that. Have a good day. Thank you. I mean, seriously, this was a big time commitment for everyone who joined us. We really appreciate it. Scott, thank you.
Absolutely. Happy to join anytime. Good to see you guys. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.